Well, this is going to be a quick video on dispelling some of the myths around Russian propaganda. And coming from RT and also being repeated by the alternatard media like Gerald Celente or Alex Jones or Mike Rivero, another famous name in alternative media. And actually, I want to also point out that a lot of times these largest alternative media outlets are directly connected to Time Warner, which is interesting that InfoWars is owned by Time Warner. From my best research, I've seen this before that, you also see Jesse Ventura with his conspiracy channel. It's a Time Warner production. So, are they really giving you information? And now, before I even get into all this detail, what I'm going to go through here, I also want to let you know about something I've been privy to, because what really the New World Order is actually doing is they want the Westerners to reject their system, their actual structure, their structure of limited government, constitutional republic, and, with a financial crash. And now, this is getting in a little bit of conspiracy land too, but it's a little bit of a different angle than you're ever hearing from other conspiracy channels. What they want you to do is reject that system and then introduce a type of hybrid capitalist communist system with a human face, quote unquote, where it appears to be a better alternative than what you have. So often you'll hear the word change. You'll hear this word change in better change this, change that, throw out the old, get in the new. Even Gorbachev is now talking about, Gorbachev, who was the former Soviet leader. He runs the Gorbachev USA Foundation, which is actually a globalist think tank for the environment. He's also talking about the U.S. needs a new perestroika. Perestroika means a restructuring. Another key buzzword is change. Actually, whenever you hear the alternatard media talking, they're not stupid. Actually, I shouldn't be calling them that, because they're not stupid. They actually got a lot of people hook, line, and sinker cheering for their own demise. And this probably is the New World Order plan, because if you really want to get into what the New World Order is, one part of the New World Order was the spread of communism. But it's been changed a little bit and morphed into something else. But here I want to get into some of the propaganda where, I know Vladimir Putin was talking about, or Russia Today, or Russia was talking about the importance, the strategic importance of the Crimea naval base. Now, the thing is, before they invaded Crimea and before they invaded Ukraine, clandestinely, whatever you want to call it, with Crimea was not going to be lost as a naval base to Russia, no matter what happened. There was vote to go up with Crimea to be independent, have more autonomy. Actually, the Crimea actually had some autonomy within Ukraine government as it was. They weren't going to lose their naval base. So now it's part of Russia formally, right? So they just took it back. But, part of the propaganda out there was here's the Crimea right down here. The part of the propaganda coming from Russia was that you needed this base because it was like landlocking Russia. Now, I'm gonna point out some things first off with population density and things, because a lot of people don't even realize a lot of this stuff when you're looking at, big mother Russia and all this. Here's Europe, right? Now, you're looking at, here's the borderline right here, and here's Moscow up here. You're looking at the borderline with Russia, with Europe. You notice that Russia has a less population density than Europe. But then if you're going east, and actually the part of Russia that's actually Asia proper, which is 3/4 of Russia, actually that's where the smallest amount of population resides. So I'm going to actually interject here, just a lot of common sense. When there's a lot of population in an area, that means there's a lot of economic activity to support those people. There's a lot of livelihoods going on. There's GDP going on, gross national product, whatever, gross domestic product. There's something there. It's why be in an area where there's nothing? You know what I'm saying? In other words, Russia has a lot of land that needs to be developed, but they're not going to do that. They're going to go into Ukraine because there's something here for them. Even though Ukraine doesn't have a lot of money, but they want to extend their influence on Europe. Now, I'm going to point to the fact that if even the Crimea wasn't going to be lost in any situation, whether Ukraine was independent, became a part of the EU, or whatever. The other thing is, all this area right here, this is part of Russia. This is also on the Black Sea. Now, how important is the Black Sea? In a way, it is important, but then in a way, if you're thinking about it, is it important on a global, international, strategic importance? Not really, because if there was ever some kind of major conflict, you think all the naval ports that are in the Black Sea couldn't easily be bottled up either through right here the Straits by Istanbul or through the Mediterranean? It's not a blue water port, I mean, but they're not losing the port anyway. They weren't losing the port anyway. But I want to show you, when they're concentrating on this area, saying, oh, the Russians can't get to, they can't have a blue water naval, they're being bottlenecked. I'm going to show you some other maps. So first, we're going to get into the map about Russia and their population densities. If you look at this, almost all of it is concentrated by Europe and also on the Mongolian border. All this part of Russia, this is from 2010, just basically nothing here. They got so much they can develop in natural resources and land, but they don't want to develop something internally. It's not the Russians, it's the government. It's like they got a racket, and actually there are rackets in the Russian government that the Russian, which is basically the entire Russian economy, or most of it is the export of natural gas and oil. It's all tied in with the West. The elitists in Russia are tied in with the West. But they have, they're not, the elitists in Russia are not developing all this land. Actually, Russia has way less than half the less than half, let's just say significantly less than half the population of the United States, yet twice the land mass. So you're looking at almost all the Russian population is concentrated over by Europe. There's nothing over here. It's nothing. It's there's people there, but it's basically fairly empty, So if you look at the United States, though, we know about the great western areas in the Midwest. It's pretty open, but the United States is actually far more densely populated than Russia. We have twice the population and less than half the land mass. And you looked at, all this area in the United States, almost all of it is developed. So, I mean, what is Russia really trying to do? When they're giving you out this spiel, when they're saying we're being boxed in, we're being cornered because, the EU is coming up to us, and they got so much land mass they need to develop internally. It's ridiculous. It's like, I don't even know what the hell. They're the largest freaking nation on earth. So how are they being boxed in? So here, if we look at Russia from the Arctic Ocean, now all this orange area, this is Russia. So if you're talking about seaports access, they got loads of seaport access to anywhere in the world. If they want to get to the United States or Canada, and actually this is Denmark, Greenland, Denmark, or Europe, they got plenty of access through all this. They got far more access to the Arctic and all the oil exploration and natural gas exploration that's up there. How the hell could you be boxing in to the largest nation on earth? That's one of the freaking things that the alternative media is coming up with. It's almost like they're saying since the Crimea, the Crimea was never going to be lost as a Russian port. It was just that there was this Russian-backed president that was actually Viktor Yanukovych that was actually being pushing for the Russian language to be the language of Ukraine. So you can kind of tell who the hell he was working for. And I showed you all his wealth and riches before on another video. It's ridiculous. And I went over that damn story about the gold that was disappeared supposedly from Ukraine that came from a Russian news source, and all the other ludicrous stories that the Russian news sources said. I went over that in another video. But the thing is, when you're looking at, the Black Sea here, it's like, yeah, Odessa wouldn't have been lost, but then you still have all of this area. Russia actually borders the Black Sea anyway. They also border, over here by Finland. They can come in. There's like no way in hell they're being boxed in. They weren't going to lose the port anyway. I mean, it's ludicrous. Crimea was always semi-independent, even under the Ukraine government. It always was. So what the hell is Putin really trying to do? He's trying to actually exercise his influence over Europe. That's what he's really trying to do. He's also, as far as like Latvia and Belarus, I mean they're pretty much all in the hip pocket of Russia as it is. And then if you actually look at his strategic partner, China, I mean really, it's like, I mean, how the hell is he being boxed in? How is he being boxed in? How is he being boxed in? That's one of the stupidest things I ever heard on the alternative media. It's almost like they're trying to like box in Russia by because Viktor Yanukovych was ousted out of power, and that means it's a threat to the Russian naval bases in the Crimea, and that means he's got nowhere to put his navy or anything. Get the hell out of here! It was never ever a threat to the Crimea, but that's what the major alternative media is hinting, and it's almost like people are buying this hook, line, and sinker. But look at how much landmass Russia actually has, and where they can have actual naval bases. And you're looking at the Black Sea. It's basically a practically landlocked sea almost. It's got to get through one strait. But if you're thinking about if there was ever, for the strategic, security of Russia, I mean, really, what it is, why he needs that is really to exercise more influence over Turkey and more influence over Europe in general. That's what he needs it for. But he wasn't going to lose it anyway. But again, we want to get into, you can see how much landmass of Russia has on the border of the Arctic Ocean. If you're looking at things from the top of the world, Russia's close to everywhere. Everywhere. A lot of people don't look at it that way. They were so micro-focused on the Black Sea, it's almost like, oh, they're being landlocked. They are? Come on. And you look at the population density of the United States, it's almost like the United States saying we need to grab more area because we don't have enough room. Well, we got a lot of room here in the Midwest, in the West, and we got a lot of other areas actually in the East that are not very well developed. But if you look at Russia, Russia's got significantly less than half the population of the United States and over twice the landmass, with almost all their population concentrated on a side by Europe. I mean, if they need to spend money in their government on something, and actually would probably help the security of Russia overall, they need to be developing this interior area of Russia. There's hardly anybody that lives there. And, I'm sure there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of land that can be developed for farming or whatever. Maybe this would be a good area to put a lot of solar panels too. I don't know. And maybe it could be, maybe not. But, some areas of Russia are fairly dry and sunny. It depends on where the hell you are. But, what happens with the reality of it is that the Russian elite have always been hooked in with the Western elite. And what the game is really going on, I've been told this from many years ago, is that what the Russians and what the Soviets before used to always expect was a total financial collapse in the West, at which time they are going to introduce a new system, a change, which we're going to call for the better, which will be a hybrid system of a capitalist communist system with a human face. And you can see this is actually going on even almost in Europe, because Europe is 100% socialistic practically already, and a lot of people don't like the European Union that live in Europe. A lot of people don't like the euro that live in Europe. A lot of regular people, that is, don't like the European Union. So what's really going on overall, if you want to get above what's going on between the intramural contest between the West and the East right now, the Illuminati are playing it to the max. And I'm going to tell you right now, well, we'll call them the Illuminati, but I just want to tell you right now that the alternative media is in on the game. The major alternative media is in on the game too. So by you actually rejecting all the tools at your disposal to fix things, by saying we want to have change, we're just mad, we just want to stop this, well, what that means is they're just going to introduce a new set of rules, and then you're not going to be able to do squat about it. Now, here is my method, and actually you'll see, actually I intersperse a lot of my videos with how-to videos and things like that. The more independent you are, and the more you can depend upon your own physical resources where you don't use money, and you actually are independent in a true sense, almost like being a rancher or something like that, the more you are fighting the New World Order, because the more you get away from the financial system, the better off you are. And the way to get away from the financial system and have true wealth is to do things on your own all the way. So again, just want to point out, the Black Sea was never in doubt as far as Russia losing its ports on the Crimea or anything like that. I mean, that was all bullshit. I mean, the guy just wanted it to be part of Russia. The Crimea was almost all Russian as it was because the military was in there. And the military, and if you look back at why there's so many Russians in Ukraine, and especially in the eastern side of it, it's due to like policies that basically knocked out the native Ukrainians, you know? So, I mean, Putin is looking to be in an area of influence where there's something. Where there's something is Europe. Where there is pretty much nothing is all the rest of this landmass called Russia. You know, that's work to freaking develop this. But, you know, if you go over in somebody else's backyard, namely Europe, they got something. Let's see what we can get, and see if we can extend our influence in there, and let's see what we can get out of it. That's really Putin's game. So who's in whose backyard? Actually, it's Russia that is entrenching and playing games in Europe's backyard versus the other way around. Because, like I said, here's their backyard in Russia. What are they doing with this? Nothing. Nothing. They're not trying to populate this, create cities. Like you look in Brazil, I mean, they're trying to get, you know, they try to get Brasilia, more roadways, develop the interior. Is Putin trying to develop the interior of Russia? No, no. He wants to go over to Europe and get what he can out of this. So that's why he's looking for the Ukraine. That's why he's looking for the Ukraine. You know? So, the alternative media, I'm going to tell you again, if you really look into deep, the biggest names are actually controlled by the major media in the United States. So when they tell you about change, they're telling you about throwing out everything you got at your disposal to fix anything, and then when a new system comes in, and I've known this for many years. It's been going on this has been said for decades, and nobody wants to hear it. It's been around. I've known about this way before the internet was even thought of on paper, probably. But it's been around for a long time to introduce to the world a hybrid system of communism and capitalism with a human face. This has been going on for a long, long time. So the alternative media is actually working for the bad guys for the most part. And the lesser alternative media are pretty much repeating what the bigger, larger names are repeating. Except this kid, because I have a better picture of what's going on. Communism before, and actually communism never really fell. It's moved into environmentalism. It's moved into the White House with Obama, you know. But hey, you know, it's never really fell. It's like the ideology's still been around here. And by the way, I'm not against environmentalism in the true sense, clean air and clean earth, but they're looking for it in the other aspect of private property controls. And Gorbachev, with his Gorbachev USA Foundation, who's calling for more change in the United States, a perestroika, a restructuring. Gorbachev USA Foundation is all about global environmentalism and initiatives and sustained development, you know, the buzzword. Which, in some ways, you can look at, there's some merit in that, but there's an evil force behind it, because they're knocking out all your private property rights, and when they do that, they're knocking out all your means to stay independent. So again, I want to point out. I guess I got to be, say these points a few times, but really, being independent is really your freedom. So really, the way to fight him back is to be independent in a real sense. In other words, you got to do things with with your hands, with your tools, grow your own crops or whatever. Do everything you possibly can on your own. That actually makes you more independent from the elite, more so in a real way than in a ideological way, because it's like, you could think, oh, I feel independent, but if you get right down to the nuts and bolts, you don't really need them, period. You don't even need a bank. Well, guess what? You truly are independent. So looking at what's going on in Russia, what they're really looking to do is, the Russian elite. I mean, the Russian people are just freaking trying to survive, right? Like everybody else in the world, they're too busy with their own freaking daily lives. But the Russian elite, what they're really trying to do is make a lot of inroads into Europe. That's why they need it to, that's why they're trying to push harder and harder in Ukraine. Don't let them fool you, man. Don't let them fool you. And the bad boys on this side of the West, they are leading the opposition from the top by the alternative media. They really are. So just a little food for thought. I just want to bring up a couple base points here that Russia's far less developed than people think. It's like I don't know if you know, and Russia's got so much landmass on the Arctic Ocean and the Pacific, and and also even on the Baltic itself. I mean, and even the Black Sea and the Baltic. It's like they got plenty of blue water naval seaports all over, plus their strategic partners do in China, which they can actually, it's not like they can't dock and use ships and dock ships over in Chinese seaports. So, how the hell, it was so ludicrous when I was hearing this garbage about, they're trying to bottle in Russia because Ukraine's government changed over. The Crimea still would have always been semi-independent, even governed, locally under Kiev, even if there was a change in president and this corrupt Viktor Yanukovych was knocked out of power. So what? There was no threat there. Putin was using this as an excuse to make more inroads in an area that he feels is going to be more lucrative for Russia. It's easier to get in where there's more money, which is Europe, than it is to develop all this interior of Russia. It's like there's a vast wasteland here, and it's like there's nothing here. Don't bother with that. A lot of people don't realize, there's nothing here. A lot of people just don't realize that, and it's almost like they think it's almost like in the United States. When we talk about, the West has the Great West. Well, the United States is like half the size with twice the population. But even our western states are far more populated, far more densely populated than most of what Russia is in the 3/4 of Russia that's in Asia. But no, they're not internally developing anything. They want to move into Europe area and gain control and influence. They're looking for the fast, easy money. That's what they're doing.